On my 66th birthday, I expected laughter, warmth, maybe even a cake topped with flickering candles. Instead, I was met with a cruel performance staged by the people I loved most. The moment I stepped into the Azure Lantern, that elegant restaurant with sapphire chandeliers and the scent of garlic butter drifting through the air, my son's wife stood to her feet and announced with theatrical sweetness, "This is your last supper before you move into the retirement home." For a breath, time itself seemed to pause. Silverware clinked against plates around us, conversations hummed in the background, but all I heard was the smug triumph in her tone. I steadied myself, forced my lips into a calm curve, and replied, low but sharp, "And this is your last supper living in a house of your own." Her smirk faltered, just slightly, and I tucked that moment away like a pearl. The next morning, as I sat with my coffee, I reflected on that night. My name is Aaliyah Monroe, and though I am 66 years old, I am far from fragile. I never imagined that my own birthday would unravel into humiliation, but also into revelation. That Friday evening had begun so differently. I dressed carefully, slipping into my midnight blue dress, the one my late husband DeAndre adored. He used to say the color made me look like I was carved from twilight itself. Before leaving, I clasped on the sapphire earrings he'd gifted me for our 25th anniversary, their weight reminding me of a love that had once been unwavering and true. When I entered the Azure Lantern, the glow of polished wood and low jazz music wrapped around me like a shawl. At the window table sat my 41-year-old son, Malik, fidgeting nervously with his napkin. His eyes darted anywhere but mine. Beside him, his wife Kira radiated self-satisfaction in a scarlet dress, her smile bright but brittle, the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. "Happy birthday, Aaliyah," she chirped too loudly, her embrace stiff, perfumed, and false. Malik rose, brushing a quick kiss on my cheek. "Happy birthday, Mom." For a while, the evening played its part. We spoke of weather, his work, her grand plans for redecorating their house, the very home I had kept afloat in secret. I listened, nodding, sipping my wine, letting the charade unfold. Then, like a hawk swooping, Kira made her move. She dabbed her lips, straightened her posture, and announced, "Aaliyah, Malik, and I think it's time we have an important conversation." I felt the sting in her phrasing. Malik and I. Not we, not the family. Just them united, excluding me. "What is it?" I asked, though in truth, dread was already pooling in my stomach. Her eyes glimmered with false pity. "You've been slipping lately. Little memory lapses. It's not safe for you to live alone anymore." Inside, indignation flared. My mind was clear as glass. I handled my finances, kept my home immaculate, devoured novels weekly. But I kept silent, curious to see how deep this betrayal went. "We found the perfect retirement community," she continued, her voice honeyed with condescension. "It's called Sunset Haven. Around-the-clock care, social activities, medical staff. A retirement home," I corrected softly. "A retirement community," Malik interjected quickly, his voice tight. "Mom, we just want what's best for you." I looked at him then, my boy, the same child who once begged me to chase away nightmares, who used to swear he'd marry me when he grew up because I was the most beautiful woman he knew. But now he sat across from me, rehearsed lines spilling from his lips, loyalty bent by the woman at his side. "We've already scheduled the move," Kira declared, her eyes glittering. "On Wednesday. We'll take care of the packing." And in that instant, clarity pierced me. All the years of subtle exclusion, the dinners I'd been forgotten for, the way conversations would hush when I entered the room, it all crystallized. "So this is my last meal as a free woman," I said quietly. Kira leaned back, triumphant. "Don't see it that way, Aaliyah. Think of it as a fresh start." I lifted my glass, savoring the taste of red wine as if it were courage itself. Then I locked eyes with her. "You're right. This is my last dinner with you." I paused, watching her confidence flicker. "And it's also your last dinner in a house of your own." The silence was suffocating. Malik's brow furrowed. Kira's complexion blanched. "What do you mean?" she stammered. For the first time that evening, I smiled, genuine and unshaken. "You'll find out tomorrow." I rose, set money on the table, and walked out, their whispers dissolving behind me. At home that night, surrounded by framed memories and the scent of lavender polish on old wood, I dialed a number burned into my mind. "Mr. Holloway," I said when the line picked up. "This is Aaliyah Monroe. Come early tomorrow morning. It's time my family learns the truth." I hung up, poured myself another glass of wine, and felt strength settle into me. Tomorrow, Malik and Kira would see that the woman they sought to exile to a retirement home was no fragile widow, but the silent owner of their house, and far more than they had ever guessed. Saturday dawned sharp and cold. I woke before sunrise, brewed a pot of coffee, and laid out the documents I had kept tucked away for years. To them, I was a modest widow scraping by on a pension. In truth, DeAndre and I had built a quiet empire, investing wisely in real estate across Raventon. The home on Cypress Lane, where Malik and Kira had lived for 6 years, was just one piece of it. What they didn't know was that when debt nearly consumed them 4 years ago, I had silently cleared their mortgage, transferring the deed into my name. At 8:30 sharp, Terrence Holloway arrived. Tall, measured, his presence was as steady as the leather briefcase he carried. He had been our family lawyer for 2 decades, a man who understood the weight of silence and the power of timing. "Good morning, Aaliyah," he said warmly, setting his case on my table. "I suppose the day has come." "Yes," I replied, pouring him coffee with a steady hand. "I can't hide anymore." We had rehearsed this moment for years. He had seen Kira's manipulation, prepared strategies, drafted contingencies. "Are you certain you want to proceed?" he asked, though he already knew. I met his gaze. "After last night, there's no turning back." I told him everything: the dinner, the betrayal, their cold precision. He listened, patient, and finally nodded. "Very well. We'll begin with the eviction notice. Since you are the rightful owner of the property on Cypress Lane, the law is entirely on your side." And in that moment, I felt the first taste of justice, sharp, cleansing, and long overdue. "How long do they have to vacate?" I asked, my voice low but steady, though my hands trembled slightly around my coffee mug. Terrence Holloway adjusted his glasses, his tone calm and assured. 30 days is standard. But if we argue a breach of the lease agreement, we can reduce it to 1 week. I frowned. "What lease agreement?" A small, knowing smile tugged at his lips. "The one we'll sign right now. Backdated 3 years. A contract that states the lease can be terminated immediately in the case of disrespect or threats to the owner." As I signed the stack of documents, my pen gliding across the paper with finality, I couldn't help but reflect on the winding path that had brought me here. I remembered the first time Malik brought Kira home, 8 years ago. She had dazzled us both back then, or at least she had tried. "Your mom is incredible," she told him that first dinner, her smile warm, her eyes alight with feigned admiration. "I hope she and I can be very close." At first, I believed her. She rolled up her sleeves in my kitchen, asked about DeAndre, and seemed genuinely curious about our family story. But over time, the cracks began to show. The suggestions came first, subtle as needles. "Maybe Malik spends too much time with you. He needs to cut the cord, don't you think?" she said once, her laugh airy but her eyes sharp. Then the criticisms cloaked in concern. "Aaliyah, should you really be driving at your age? Or, I worry about you being alone. What if you fall and no one finds you?" Soon, Malik, my sweet boy, began repeating those same lines as if they were his own thoughts. I watched as his voice echoed hers, and my heart broke a little each time. "Ready," Terrence said, sliding the signed papers back into his briefcase. "The eviction notice will be served Monday morning. I've also prepared letters for the bank, terminating all the automatic transfers you've been covering for them." I stiffened. That was something Malik and Kira had never known. For years, I had quietly shouldered their expenses: Kira's shiny new car, the trip they flaunted on social media last summer, even the ostentatious furniture she insisted on buying. "And the utilities?" I asked. "All in their names," Terrence confirmed. "Electricity, water, gas, internet. By law, you can shut them off Monday as well." A pang of sorrow twisted in my chest. Despite everything, Malik was still my son. My baby. But the sorrow was quickly eclipsed by something sharper: resolve. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. After Terrence left, I sat in my kitchen, cradling a second cup of coffee, staring at the phone like it held the weight of fate itself. I knew I had to act before Kira could twist the narrative in her favor. I dialed Malik's number. He answered on the third ring. "Mom, are you okay? You left so quickly last night." His voice carried genuine worry, and for a fleeting moment, my determination faltered. This was still my boy, the one I had rocked to sleep, the one I had soothed through nightmares. "Malik, I need you to come over. Just you. There's something important we need to discuss." "It can't wait. Kira and I were just about to look at houses for you near the retirement community. I mean, near Sunset Haven." Even after humiliating me in public, they were marching forward with their plans, as if my voice no longer mattered. "No, Malik. It can't wait. Come now, or on Monday, you'll find out in a much less pleasant way." There was a long pause, the silence crackling. "Mom, you're scaring me. You should be scared. Come alone. If you bring Kira, I won't open the door." I hung up before he could answer. As I waited, I wandered my house. The home DeAndre and I had bought when Malik was just 5. Every corner whispered memories. The pencil marks etched on the wall where he measured his height each birthday, the grape juice stain on the carpet from when he was 7, the photo of him at graduation beaming with his diploma in hand. Where had it all gone wrong? At what point had my son stopped seeing me as his mother and started seeing me as a burden? The doorbell rang exactly 45 minutes later. Malik stood there, nervous, shifting his weight. "Hi, Mom." "Come in," I said, stepping aside. He sat on the couch where he had once watched Disney movies with me on endless loops. I lowered myself into DeAndre's old chair, facing him. "Malik," I began, my voice steady, "there are many things you don't know about me, about your father, about our finances." "Mom, if this is about money for the retirement home, I told you, Kira and I will cover it." "Your house," I cut in. "The one you and Kira live in. Do you know who the real owner is?" He frowned. "It's ours. We have the mortgage." "No, Malik. You don't." I reached for the folder Terrence had left, slid the papers across to him. I watched his expression shift: confusion, disbelief, then shock as his eyes devoured the words. This can't be real. When you were about to lose the house 4 years ago, I paid off the debt. The bank transferred the deed to me. You've been living in my property ever since." He went pale. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Because I thought my son was living there. I thought you would one day understand what I had done for you." My voice cracked. "But last night, I realized I don't have a son. I have a stranger who wants to lock me away to erase me." "Mom, no, it's not like that." I rose, walked toward the window. "When was the last time you came to see me without needing money? When did you last call just to ask how I was?" The silence between us screamed the answer. "On Monday," I said, still facing the glass, "you'll receive an eviction notice. You have 1 week to leave." "Mom, you can't do this. We're family." I turned slowly, meeting his eyes. "Last night at that restaurant, you made it clear I'm no longer family. Now, Malik, you will discover the consequences of that choice." Sunday morning dawned quiet. I sat with my newspaper, steam rising from my cup, when the phone began ringing again and again. Unknown numbers. On impulse, I answered. "Aaliyah, it's Carmen. I'm Kira's sister." Her voice was sharp, dripping accusation. "I can't believe what you're doing to my sister and your son." So, the campaign had begun. I had expected as much. "Good morning, Carmen. I didn't know you had my number. Kira gave it to me. She's devastated." "How can you be so cruel to your own family?" I leaned back, bracing myself. "Did Kira tell you about Friday night's dinner?" "She told me you lost control. That you reacted like a crazy woman when they tried to help you." "Crazy." Of course that was her narrative. "Did she also tell you they announced I'd be forced into a retirement facility without my consent?" "Aaliyah, at your age, it's normal to need help." "Carmen, I'm 66, not 96. I handle my finances. I drive. I cook. I read. There's nothing wrong with me. But Kira said you've been forgetting things, that sometimes you don't even recognize people." Lies. Layered lies. Kira had been preparing this for months, planting seeds, grooming the story she wanted the world to hear. Carmen, did you ever once talk to me about these supposed memory lapses? Silence. Well, no, but… Exactly. If there had been an issue, the first step should have been to talk to me, not to decide my fate behind closed doors. But Carmen was only the first. Calls poured in: Kira's mother, a cousin I hadn't seen in years, even Kira's best friend. Each one parroting the same story, that I had grown senile, cruel, punishing my poor family. By noon, I had counted 12 calls. Kira had been busy indeed. Then the doorbell rang. Through the glass, I spotted a sleek, unfamiliar car. I opened the door to find an older woman, impeccably dressed, her expression severe. Are you Aaliyah Monroe? Yes. I'm Dr. Patricia Vega, a geriatric specialist. Your daughter-in-law contacted me about her concerns for your mental health. She asked me to come evaluate you. It felt like a slap across the face. Kira had gone so far as to summon a doctor to my home without my consent. I didn't request any evaluation, I said firmly, standing tall in my doorway. The woman adjusted her glasses, her voice clinical yet condescending. Mrs. Monroe, I understand it can be confusing, but sometimes those with cognitive decline don't realize they need help. Dr. Vega, is it? I kept my voice calm, but every word was weighted like stone. I appreciate you coming, but I will not allow you to enter my home without a legal order. If my daughter-in-law is truly concerned about my mental health, she can pursue it through the proper channels. Her brows lifted, caught off guard by my sharpness. Ma'am, your family is genuinely concerned. I laughed, though there was no humor in it. My family? They stood in a restaurant Friday night and announced they were going to put me in a retirement home without even asking me. That isn't concern, doctor. That's manipulation. She faltered, and after a brief exchange of pleasantries, she left, heels clicking against the pavement as she retreated. When the door closed, I leaned against the counter, trembling not from fear, but from rage. Kira wasn't going to stop. She was escalating, willing to have me declared mentally incompetent if it meant seizing control. I dialed Terrence immediately. Aaliyah? What's wrong? He asked, concern lacing his voice. I told him everything: the calls, the smear campaign, the doctor at my door. He was quiet for a moment, then said gravely, "This is more serious than I thought. If she gathers enough testimonies that you're incompetent, she could attempt to challenge your control over the properties." My stomach tightened. Can she really do that? It's difficult, but not impossible, especially if she convinces Malik to support her. The words stung like acid. My own son, testifying against me? I whispered, "What can I do?" We need to act quickly. Medical proof of your competence will protect you. I'll schedule an emergency appointment this afternoon with Dr. Ramirez, your physician of 15 years, and also a neuropsychologist for a full evaluation. The calls kept flooding in. Old neighbors, distant cousins, even colleagues I hadn't seen since my teaching days. Each voice carried Kira's poison, rehearsed accusations. But the most painful call came from my sister, Teresa, who lived out of state. "Aaliyah," she said, her voice heavy with worry. "Malik called me. He says you've been acting strangely, that you forced them out of their house for no reason." "Their house," I repeated bitterly. "Is that what he told you?" "Yes." "Aaliyah, is it really necessary to be so drastic? They're your family." "Teresa, do you think I would suddenly lose my mind?" She hesitated. "Well, no, but aging can be. I'm 66, Teresa. The same age as you." That silenced her. I sighed. "Look, I'm sending you documents, property deeds, bank statements, records of the payments I've made for Malik and Kira. Even recordings of the way she speaks to me. See the truth before you judge me." That night, I assembled a meticulous packet of evidence and sent it to Teresa and a handful of trusted relatives. If Kira wanted a war of narratives, I would arm myself with truth. Monday came earlier than expected. At 7 a.m., the phone rang. Malik's voice was frantic. "Mom, there's a man at our door with papers. He says we have to vacate the house." "Yes," I replied evenly. "How could you do this? You called the police on us like we're criminals." "No, Malik. Not police. A sheriff. He's serving a legal eviction notice. There's a difference. But we're your family, he shouted, desperation cracking his voice. I felt my jaw tighten. Last night your wife brought a doctor to my house to have me declared incompetent. Was that family, Malik? Silence stretched between us. Kira says she's just trying to protect you, he finally whispered. Protect me from what? Myself? She's told you I'm in danger of scammers, that I can't live alone. And you repeat her words like a parrot. When was the last time you had a thought of your own about your mother? The line was so still I thought he'd hung up. Then came the faintest reply, I don't know. For the first time in years, I heard honesty in his voice. That's the most truthful thing you've said to me in a long time, I murmured. After I hung up, I sat by the window overlooking the garden DeAndre and I had planted together. Loneliness settled over me like a familiar blanket, yet beneath it was something new: freedom. I was free of pretense, free of catering to Kira's games, free of tiptoeing around Malik's excuses. The phone rang again. Terrence. Aaliyah, I have news. Malik just called my office. He wants to meet with me this afternoon. For what? He didn't say, but I'd wager Kira is pushing him to contest the eviction. I straightened in my chair. Can he? He can try. But I have some surprises waiting for him if he does. Let's just say my digging into their finances uncovered interesting patterns in Kira's spending. My lips curved into a grim smile. Good. Then let's be ready. As I hung up, a realization crystallized. The war had begun in earnest. Kira would not back down. She had chosen Malik as her weapon. But I had weapons too, and mine were sharpened with truth. That afternoon, as I waited for updates on the meeting, the phone rang again. Mrs. Monroe? This is Detective Morales with the local police. We've received a report you might be in danger. My blood ran cold. What kind of danger? Your daughter-in-law called. She claims you've been acting erratically, and she's afraid you might harm yourself or others. Kira had played her dirtiest card yet. She was trying to have me institutionalized or worse. An hour later, Detective Morales arrived. He was middle-aged, with alert eyes softened by an undercurrent of kindness. I welcomed him inside, poured him coffee, and watched as he discreetly assessed both me and my home. Mrs. Monroe, he said finally, after speaking with you and seeing your environment, I see no sign of erratic or dangerous behavior. Because there isn't any, I replied coolly. I am in the middle of an ugly family conflict, Detective. My daughter-in-law is pulling every string she can to paint me as senile. I handed him the thick folder I had assembled: deeds, financial records, medical reports, even audio files where Kira's contempt dripped like poison. He flipped through, nodding slowly. This paints a very different picture. He closed the folder and met my gaze. Have you considered filing for a restraining order against your daughter-in-law? I blinked. Can I do that? If you can show harassment or threats, yes. And from what I've just seen, you have a strong case. When he left, exhaustion swept over me, but with it came relief. At least the law saw through Kira's lies. But I knew her well enough by now she would not stop. And her next move was already on its way. That night, while organizing files in my study, I stumbled upon a discovery that turned my blood to ice. In an old cedar box where I kept my most precious papers, something was wrong, terribly wrong. The velvet pouch that held my mother's jewels was gone. I rummaged frantically, hands shaking. My grandmother's diamond brooch missing. The emerald earrings left to me by my aunt gone. The gold watch from my graduation vanished. And worst of all, the pearl necklace DeAndre had given me for our 10th anniversary was nowhere to be found. Panic rising in my chest, I tore through the rest of the box, but the truth was undeniable. The heirlooms, the treasures I had planned to one day leave to Malik, had been stolen. At nearly 10 o'clock that night, I called Terrence without hesitation. Aaliyah? What's wrong? Someone's stolen my jewelry, I said, my voice breaking. The most valuable pieces gone from my safe. A heavy silence followed. Then, who else has access to your house? Only Malik. He's had a spare key since DeAndre died. I could hear the weight in Terrence's pause. Aaliyah, I have to ask, when was the last time you checked those jewels? I thought back. About 6 months ago. I took them out on the anniversary of DeAndre's death. And since then, how many times has Malik been to your house when you weren't here? My stomach sank. Too many. He came often when I ran errands or went to appointments. He always said he wanted to check that the pipes weren't leaking, that the electricity was working. I had thought it sweet. Now it felt like betrayal. Terrence, are you suggesting my son stole from me? I'm suggesting that tomorrow morning we visit every pawn shop in Ravenun with photos of the missing pieces. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, tears slipping silently into my hair. Not for the jewels, they were priceless, yes, but material. I wept for the boy I had raised, for the possibility that he had pawned his grandmother's diamonds and his father's gifts for cash. At dawn, Terrence arrived with a private investigator, Mr. Mendoza. Together, we set out with photos of every missing heirloom and a list of the city's busiest pawn shops. We didn't have to search long. At the third shop, the owner's eyes lit with recognition the moment he saw the photographs. Yes, these, he said. A young man brought them in 2 months ago. Said they were his grandmother's, that the family needed quick cash. Mr. Mendoza leaned forward. Describe him. Brown hair, about 40, well-dressed but nervous. He brought a woman blonde, polished, very sure of herself. My heart shattered. Malik and Kira. How much did you give them? I whispered. The man consulted his ledger. 2,000. They were easily worth 40. But they agreed to it. They needed the money immediately. Did they say why? Terrence asked. The man shrugged. Mentioned a trip. The woman talked about a spa resort. And just like that, the pieces clicked. 2 months ago, Kira had paraded photos on social media, luxury spa treatments, fine dining, 5-star suites. A vacation bought with my family's jewels. We left with copies of the receipts, the paperwork, even the security footage showing them pawning my treasures. Back in my kitchen, I broke. For the first time since this war began, I cried openly. Not for the gems, but for Malik, for the son who no longer existed, replaced by a stranger who would steal his grandmother's legacy. Terrence let me cry, his hand resting gently on the table. When I quieted, he spoke. Aaliyah, there's more. He slid a folder toward me. Inside, bank statements, credit reports, credit card bills, all compiled by Mr. Mendoza. Their debts total over 80,000, Terrence explained grimly. Credit cards. A personal loan Malik took 6 months ago. 80,000? I gasped. On what? Designer clothes, jewelry, renovations, vacations. They've been living beyond their means for years. I flipped through the pages, sickened by the endless charges, thousands at high-end boutiques, fine restaurants, luxury brands. Terrence's voice lowered. And there's something else. Malik has been siphoning money from your checking account. I froze. What? Since you named him beneficiary, the bank gave him emergency access when you were hospitalized last year. They never revoked it. He's taken about 35,000 over the past 10 months. Small amounts each time, hoping you wouldn't notice. I staggered to the window, gripping the frame to steady myself. My son had stolen not only my jewels, but my money. Terrence, I said finally, my voice cold as stone. I want to press charges. He studied me. Are you sure? If you do this, there's no going back. Malik could go to jail. I turned, tears drying on my cheeks. The son I raised is gone. The man who sold his grandmother's jewels for a spa vacation is not my child. He's a thief. And thieves must face justice. That afternoon, while Terrence prepared the legal paperwork, my phone rang. Teresa. Aaliyah, I read the documents you sent. I can't believe it. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Do you believe me now? Yes. And hearing about the jewels, the money, her voice cracked. You have to act. This can't go on. I am acting, Teresa. Tomorrow, I'm filing criminal charges against Malik. She gasped. Against your own son? My son died a long time ago, I whispered. What's left is someone who sees me only as a bank account. That night, the phone rang again. Malik. His voice was raw, desperate. Mom, we need to talk. I think we've talked enough. Please. There are things you don't understand. Kira says she can explain. Malik, I found the jewels. Silence. Well, I didn't exactly find them. I found the pawn shop. The receipts. The footage. Mom, I can explain. Explain how you stole your grandmother's brooch, your father's necklace, to pay for massages and champagne? Explain how you drained $35,000 from my bank account. His voice was barely a whisper. How did you know about the money? Because I'm not senile, Malik. I'm 66 years old, and I know when I'm being robbed. Mom, please, we'll pay it back. We just need time. Tomorrow, I'm pressing charges. Get yourself a lawyer. I hung up, my kitchen silent except for the thrum of the refrigerator. In less than a week, I had lost my son. But for the first time in years, I felt dignity return like a flame rekindled. Wednesday morning, a violent pounding on my front door jolted me awake. I glanced at the clock, 6:30. Throwing on a robe, I peered through the peephole. Kira. But not the perfectly polished woman I knew. Her hair was wild, her makeup smeared, yesterday's clothes clinging to her like defeat. Aaliyah. Open the door. We have to talk. I didn't move. Kira, it's 6:30 in the morning. Get off my property. I'm not leaving until you talk to me. This is insane. You're destroying your family. My family destroyed itself. The banging grew louder, more frantic. I dialed the police. 15 minutes later, a patrol car pulled into the drive. From my window, I watched Kira gesturing wildly, pointing toward my house, tears streaking her face. An officer knocked. Good morning, Mrs. Monroe. I'm Officer Rodriguez. This woman says she's your daughter-in-law and insists she needs to speak to you about a family emergency. I stood tall. Officer, there is no emergency. That woman and her husband, my son, stole jewelry worth over $50,000 and siphoned $35,000 from my bank account. Today, I am filing criminal charges against both of them. The officer's gaze shifted from me to Kira, whose face had drained of color. Is that true, ma'am? She's lying. Kira snapped, her voice trembling. She's senile. She doesn't know what she's saying. I opened the door just enough to hand over the thick folders Terrence had prepared. Officer, here's the documentation. Pawn shop receipts. Security footage. Bank records showing the unauthorized withdrawals. He scanned the papers for several long minutes, his brow furrowing deeper with every page. Finally, he looked up. Ma'am, he said to Kira, his voice stern, you need to leave this property immediately. If you don't, I'll arrest you for trespassing. Kira's voice cracked. This is ridiculous. She's my mother-in-law. We're family. Family is no excuse for theft, the officer replied flatly. You have 5 minutes to leave before I call for backup. Her protests dissolved into the chilly morning air as she stomped off, her heels striking the pavement in uneven rhythm. 2 hours later, Terrence and I sat at the police station, finalizing everything. Detective Silva, a sharp-eyed woman with a precise manner, reviewed the file with meticulous care. Mrs. Monroe, this is a very solid case, she said at last. The video evidence is particularly damning. We'll issue arrest warrants for both Malik and Kira Monroe. With this evidence, they'll likely be in custody by nightfall. Outside the station, Terrence placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Aaliyah, are you sure you want to go through with this? I drew a breath. A week ago, I would have said no. But the Malik I knew would never have pawned his grandmother's jewels to buy a spa vacation. That man is gone. I can't protect him anymore. That afternoon, the phone rang 3 times. Each call shifted my world a little more. The first was from Detective Silva. Mrs. Monroe, we've arrested Malik at his workplace. He cooperated and confessed everything. He says he wants to talk to you. Kira, however, is still at large. She abandoned the house this morning and hasn't been seen since. The second was from Teresa. Her voice shook. Aaliyah, Malik called me from jail. He's devastated. He says there are things you need to know about Kira, that she threatened him. He wouldn't tell me details, but he sounded broken. And the third call was the one that nearly knocked the breath from me. Carmen, Kira's sister. Aaliyah, I need to tell you something about my sister. My voice was cold. Carmen, I'm not in the mood for more lies. No, listen. Kira called me this morning hysterical. She admitted everything. The jewels, the money, all of it. Carmen's voice cracked. And there's more. My sister is a gambling addict. Online betting, years of it. The debts? They're not just from luxuries. They're gambling debts. It felt like a punch to the gut. Did Malik know? Not at first. But when he found out months ago, she threatened to leave him, and worse. She told him she'd claim he abused her if he didn't cooperate. Aaliyah, I swear it's true. Malik never hurt her. He never hurt anyone. When the line went dead, I sat in my living room staring at the walls, trying to process. My son had been manipulated, blackmailed, but he had still stolen, still chosen lies over truth. Victim and perpetrator. Both at once. That night, I went to the county jail. The air smelled of bleach and despair, the halls echoing with distant voices. When Malik was led into the visitation room, my heart ached. His eyes were hollow, ringed with dark circles. His clothes hung loose on his frame. We sat across from one another at a cold metal table. Silence stretched between us until his voice broke it. Mom, his voice cracked. I'm so sorry. Then tell me everything, Malik. The truth. All of it. And he did. He spoke of Kira's gambling, how it began with small bets and spiraled into thousands each week. How she had threatened him, insisting that if he didn't help, she'd ruin him, leave him bankrupt, and brand him an abuser. But Mom, I never wanted to steal from you. Every time I took something, I told myself I'd replace it before you noticed. I thought I could fix it. My throat burned. You pawned your grandmother's jewels. The heirlooms meant for your children one day. Tears streamed down his face. I know. I hate myself for it. And the money from my account? Kira said it was just a loan. She swore when she won big, she'd give it all back. I searched his eyes for the boy I once knew. Malik, did it ever cross your mind to simply come to me? 1,000 times, he whispered. But Kira said you'd judge us, that you'd cut us off completely if you knew. I felt the sharp edge of bitter irony. So instead, you cut me off first. He lowered his head, ashamed. And the retirement home? I pressed. His voice was barely audible. That was Kira's idea. She said if you were in care, we could sell your house to cover debts, that it would be better for everyone. At first I resisted, but she wore me down. I was weak. I let her convince me. The silence between us was unbearable. Finally, he lifted his head. Mom, can you ever forgive me? The question pierced me. I took a long breath. Malik, I love you. I always will, because you're my son. But the man across from me isn't the boy I raised. I don't know if I can forgive what you've done. And more importantly, I don't know if you can forgive yourself. Are you going to drop the charges? No. He nodded slowly, tears falling. I understand. I deserve it. This isn't about what you deserve. It's about consequences. You made choices. Now you live with them. I stood to leave. Mom, he called softly. When they find Kira, make sure she gets help. Please. She's sick. I turned back once. Malik, you can't fix Kira. You can only fix yourself. I walked out of the jail hollow, my answers in hand, but my heart heavier than ever. My son was both victim and accomplice. The truth didn't bring peace, only clarity. But clarity was enough. 6 months later, I woke in my own bed in my own house, truly free for the first time in years. Kira had vanished, likely fled the state when she realized Malik had confessed. Detective Silva kept her warrant active, but to me, her disappearance was a gift. Malik had been sentenced to 8 months in jail, followed by 3 years of probation. He was ordered to repay every cent he had taken. His lawyer begged for leniency, but the judge had been firm. Theft is theft, regardless of excuses. I attended the sentencing but never met his eyes. Not out of cruelty, but because I had learned that looking back only chained me to the past. In those 6 months, I rebuilt my life. I hired a part-time caregiver, Maria, a warm 50-year-old with impeccable references. She came each afternoon, not as a nurse, but as a companion. We cooked together, walked the neighborhood, and laughed over stories. She had become more friend than employee. And I rewrote my will. With Terrence's help, I made sure it was airtight. The house, the properties, every last asset would pass to a foundation supporting elderly women who had suffered family abuse. My legacy would not feed greed. It would nourish resilience. Malik would receive only a modest sum, just enough to start fresh after his release, but nothing more. My legacy would no longer be squandered. The most important change, though, was within myself. For the first time in years, I was living. I enrolled in painting classes at the community center, where I discovered a hidden gift for landscapes. My canvases filled with rolling hills, golden sunsets, and the kind of peace I had once believed lost to me. I joined a local book club, where I found 3 true friends who became my chosen family. One of them, Dolores, shared her own painful story, how her son, too, had turned into someone she barely recognized. The hardest thing, she told me during one of our weekly dinners, is accepting that sometimes our children become strangers. It's not our fault, and it's not always something we can fix. Her words struck me deeply. For years, I had believed that if I just loved Malik enough, if I was endlessly patient with Kira, things would somehow mend. But love alone cannot hold up a toxic structure forever. One crisp October evening, Maria and I were chopping vegetables for dinner when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw a young woman I didn't recognize. Mrs. Monroe? I'm Laura Morales, a social worker from the correctional center. May I come in? It's about Malik. I hesitated, then opened the door. She spoke gently. Malik has been in our rehabilitation program for 4 months. His progress has been remarkable. He's asked to write you a letter, but he needs your permission to send it. Would you be willing to receive it? My chest tightened. What would the letter be about? Apologies. Growth. He's been in therapy, even attending Gamblers Anonymous to understand how he enabled Kira's addiction. He wants you to know the changes he's making. After a pause, I nodded. Let him send it. The letter arrived a week later, 5 pages in Malik's careful handwriting. Dear Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I betrayed you in the worst way a child can betray a parent. These months in jail have given me time to face the man I became, and I hate what I see. I'm not writing to ask you to change your will or erase what I did. I'm writing because I need you to know that I finally understand. I stole more than money and jewels. I stole your trust, your peace of mind, your right to age with dignity. There's no excuse for that. I've been in therapy, and I'm learning about codependency, how I made Kira's sickness my own. But even knowing that doesn't justify my choices. When I'm released in 2 months, I won't try to see you unless you want me to. I plan to move to Colorado and work for a nonprofit that helps families touched by addiction. It's the least I can do with what I've learned. Mom, you've always been my hero, the strong, independent woman I should have looked up to instead of resenting. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. With love and respect. Malik. P.S. I know I'll never hold Grandma's jewels again, but I found comfort in the photos from our albums. If you'd like copies, I'd be honored to send them. I read it twice, then folded it carefully and placed it in my desk. I wasn't ready to reply, but I was grateful to see my son finally accepting responsibility. 2 weeks later, Teresa flew in from Arizona. We hadn't seen each other in person since the ordeal began. She hugged me tightly at the airport. You look amazing. You look free. She was right. For the first time in decades, I wasn't weighed down by worry for Malik, or by Kira's manipulation, or by the exhausting charade of pretending things were fine. One evening, we went out to dinner at the Azure Lantern, the very restaurant where everything had first unraveled. Doesn't this place bring back bad memories? Teresa asked. I smiled. On the contrary. It reminds me of the moment I took my life back. As if on cue, the manager approached our table. Excuse me, ma'am. Aren't you the lady from the incident here months ago? I tensed, bracing for judgment. Yes, that's me. His expression softened. I just wanted to say how much I admired your composure. My staff still talks about it, the way you defended yourself with dignity. It was inspiring. When he left, Teresa and I laughed until tears rolled down our cheeks. Who would have thought you'd become a legend among restaurant staff? She teased. On the drive home, Teresa asked the question I had been avoiding. Do you regret any of it? I considered carefully. I regret waiting so long to stand up for myself. I regret letting Kira belittle me for years. But I don't regret the choices I made once I opened my eyes. And Malik. I sighed. Malik is an adult. He made adult choices. Their consequences are his to carry, not mine. A month later, as I was planting bulbs in the garden, Maria came out with a puzzled look. Aaliyah, there's a young man at the door. Says he's your grandson. My heart stuttered. I had no grandchildren, at least, none I'd known of. At the door stood a young man of about 20, his eyes achingly familiar. Mrs. Monroe? My name is David. David Monroe. I'm Malik's son. The ground shifted beneath me. What? Malik never. My mother and he separated when I was a baby, before he met Kira. I only found him a few months ago through social media. He told me everything. I stared at him. Seeing the boy Malik once was reflected in his gaze. May I come in? He asked softly. There's a lot we should talk about. And so, in an ending I never could have imagined, I discovered I had a grandson, bright, respectful, working his way through college, untouched by the chaos that had consumed our family. David became a regular presence. Over tea in my garden, he once said, "Grandma, I think Dad is finally figuring out who he wants to be. And I think you did what you had to do. Maybe, in time, we can all heal." I didn't know if he was right. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. A year after that disastrous dinner, my life was full again. Friends, hobbies, laughter, a grandson I never knew existed, and above all, peace. Malik had been released and moved to Colorado as promised. Every month, he sent me a postcard, short, respectful, never overstepping my boundaries. It was a start. Kira remained missing, and I prayed she stayed that way. One quiet evening, I sat in my living room, a book in hand, DeAndre's photograph glowing in the lamplight. "I think I finally understand, my love," I whispered to his smiling face. "That I deserve dignity. That I deserve respect. Especially from my own family." For the first time since his death, I felt not just alive but free.